it out. Look at the sun, so pretty today. It's so bright, it's so smashing, lasting, helps out the grass and smile when it's morning time. Last night I wrote 3 rhymes, I woke up to see the sun shining. God is my witness in scriptures and pictures. The sun-kissed, scrumptious sun is nutritious. It makes me wanna climb, take a bite out of shine. This little light of mine. Yo, the sun could never be pussy, he always come out. He'll sit right there, even if you pull your gun out. He can never run out. When the lights go out, it's Japan's turn now. The earth had spun around. I see yellow and green. It's a beautiful thing. The sky's blue cause the sun hit the water like bing, a reflection. And that's all it is. You can't stare at him long cause your face will do like
what
this.
What we're trying
Look
to do
who's
right
shining
now
again.
is we're trying to put out some information that's going to end up, I guess, the best way to say it, deadening all of the little beef that's based off of other people's interpretations of spirituality. But I think, we got like the 3 major little belief systems that's out here right now: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And so I think what's going to be important and that what we about to try to accomplish is to show how each one of them has, I guess, for lack of a better term, plagiarized they spiritual systems off of all types of other spiritual systems that really is really no more than sun worship or moon worship or nature worship. Or so I think one good thing, one way to start this off, I got my man Yahya. So expect that we about to try to hit y'all with something very, very straightforward, plain, simple, easy to understand, so we can get a picture. So I think to start off, to try to remove some of this confusion, we got I think one good thing we could do is probably kind of or you could give a brief description of who the people were that came. And let me say this first of all. A lot of these spiritual systems that we talking about, we can find them in Egypt or Northern Africa or Kemet, whatever the term may be. But those systems that we talking about, Islam and Judaism, um, we see those in all different parts of the world, and it's hard for people to really see how that could be, I guess you could say, plagiarized off of ancient African spiritual systems. So just so to kind of go into it, family, we just don't go into first of all the people who kind of originally came in and plagiarized some of these systems, and then and took them and influenced them, and then kind of sent them, I guess you could say, throughout the world for other people to, I guess, be confused or not really fully understand or whatever. But okay, so one of them first set of people who came into that area that we speaking about is the Hyskos. So so with the Hyskos, I'm gonna just first ask you, like, just kind of give us a little brief or whatever. I mean, it ain't gotta be brief, but just give the people a little background on the Hyskos.
Well, to understand what the Hyxos are, you have to understand first the geography of the land and where the area that we're talking about. And more importantly, we have to understand the relation of these areas in relation to where Kemet was, and not only Kemet, but also Nubia, because you can't necessarily talk about ancient Kemet without mentioning ancient Nubia, which is its predecessor. If you look at the archaeological evidence and you look at the geological evidence of people being nomadic coming from one area to another area, you will see that everything came from what they would call Uganda and Sudan, and came what actually was south, because the Nile runs downward rather so than upward. Then you will see that these people migrated from where they were to where they are in the Nile Delta. So when we look at this area in context of where they talk about Mesopotamia and India, or Indus Kush and Sumeria, then you understand that we think that these areas are thousands and thousands of miles from each other, when in actuality it was not. Hyksos, you have to talk about who they were before they came necessarily the historical Hyksos. If we understand that the Caucasoids or the Albions or whatever you want to call them, refer to them as, when they came out of the Caucasus Mountains, you have to understand what the Caucasus Mountains were in relation to Tibet, China, India, and those areas over there, Iraq, like that. You have to understand that they're less than 1,000 miles away. So it can literally take less than 6 months, 6 to 8 months for them to travel on foot, for them to get to one area to another area and conquest. So you have to understand that initially the Hyksos, or the people who became the Hyksos, they came from the Caucasus Mountains, and they were able to invade India and actually serve what they call the Dravidians. And the Dravidians are the ones that gave them the knowledge and allowed them to become what they call the Hindus or the Aryans. So this whole term that we hear now, when we hear about the Aryan nations in the American penal system, we're not understanding that these people who are calling themselves the Aryans, who are called blonde hair, blue eyes, they are actually false. So when we're talking about the Hyksos, we're talking about these areas where these people initially were pale skinned with red hair. And when they actually went in and synthesized themselves with the Dravidian people who were dark and black as molasses, this is where you get the blonde hair, the sandy skin, you get some of the dark complexion, you get these Johnny Mathis, Russell Wilson people. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you understand that, I would say I would approximate around maybe about 3000 BC, 2700 BC or so, they were able to go into what they call India or Indus Kush, and they were able to subjugate the Dravidians and take over their culture and become the Aryans and the Hindus. Then from there, they adopted the culture. Of course, the culture coming from the Nile Valley that came into Indus Kush. You have a lot of the priesthood, or what was going on with the mystery schools that was traversed into Indus Kush and jump-started what you have, the Dravidians, like I said, and also what you have the ancient Chinese empires. So when you go further on and you understand that these people migrated and they went into what they call Saudi Arabia or Arabia, and they intermingled with the people who already had one spiritual system that, of course, initially came from the Nile Valley. And you have another synthesis of spirituality system that was adopted from these people that they subjugated. And what you have is that they continued this trend all the way into Mesopotamia, or what they call the Bible of Levant. And once they were able to come into contact with the Chaldeans and the Babylonians and the Mitanni and the Hittites, they were able to synthesize their spiritual systems into their own. And at that point, they were able to exalt Baal at that time, or what they became, or where that Nile Valley would be set. Then when you go back into when they actually were able to actually invade the Nile Valley and actually occupy the Nile Valley for over 200 years, and they had a front or a citadel by the name of Avaris, which became babies. Then you have these people who were able to come in, and not only were they able to impose what their ideology was, what they exalted, which was Baal or Set or Saturn, and they were able to come in, and politically wise, they were able to change the things that were going on in the valley, in the Nile Valley, in terms of the political infrastructure, and also what's going on with the economic structure. And what their reign was, their reputation was that they were very notorious for being barbaric in terms of the way that they would kill women and burn down. They would burn the altars, and they would burn down. They would kill elderly people, things like that, to impose fear upon the people, so that they could easily subjugate.
Now that description that you given, that seemed like that would be a little more than at least a little more of a I guess a detailed description of what was, I guess, they try to call a shepherd king. Now, this what you're describing doesn't really necessarily sound like someone who just migrated in that was some sheep herders. This seemed like a somewhat developed kind of culture that they brought in with them.
imagine is that initially the Hyskos were of pale origin in terms of them being Indo-European and having be primarily pale skin. I would imagine that you had people that they would overtake, and they would, of course, you have some people who would lay down and become slaves, and then you have some people, of course, who would get killed. And I believe that many of the people who were in the particular priesthoods of the people that they subjugated were willing to barter with them for their lives. So I believe that thousands of years, this idea of what they call the boule is a 1,000-year-old idea, and that comes from the simple fact that people want to spread their lives. So they're willing to sell out their own people, in order for them to live. So there's a misconception, I believe, even by a lot of our master teachers and our historians. They like to think that the Hyskos were just completely Indo-European. They were pale. I believe that they weren't. And I also believe that if they were primarily pale, the pale weren't the ones that were out there conquesting most everything. They might have been the generals. They might have been the leaders in terms of the infantry, but I don't believe that they were the ones that were out there on the front line. And if there was one that would have to be represented, they sent out a panel of 3 or 4 of them. This is why when you look at the so-called depictions on the pyramid walls, you see a panel of 3 or 4 of them in a row going towards or greeting somebody who is a Nubian or Kushite, so to speak. So I believe everything has always been political in the sense of that once the together enough numbers, they didn't have to go about doing things the same way because they had spiritual background, even if it was grafted, and they also had the numbers of the people who, were given them technology in terms of them able to fabricate weapons. Because one of the main things that they try to sell on about the Hyskos is that the Hyskos brought in a certain type of technology into the Nile Valley that we apparently supposedly didn't have. And I believe that to be false because it's not that we didn't have the technology, it's that we didn't have the need for horses and horse-drawn carriages because we're in the valley. But idealistically, what needs to be understood about the Hyskos is that the Hyskos, until they were able to have enough numbers to overrun the population of where they were going, they lived on the outskirts of them, pretty much terrorized what was going on in the outside and causing trouble. They were rabble rousers. So when you talk about the term shepherd king, it's not really the fact that they really were shepherd kings per se. It was more the fact that in order for you to survive, because you're not really the place that's centralized or have a foundation, you have to have a herd that's going to migrate with you. This is why you keep sheep and goat with you, because they're migrant animals. As long as they have grass to eat or whatever like that, they're going to go wherever the grass is. So they were able to move and sustain numbers because they had livestock to sustain their stock of their own people.
Now, Fallon, let me add this in here. I just did a quick entomology check on that name, Hyskos, and it's saying that from like the 1600, 15th dynasty of the Egyptian kings, it gives a date of 1650 to 1558. But what it says is called
1650 BC, something like that, 13th dynasty, and this is their so-called. It was the start of the second intermediate period of the Asiatic conquest. Basically, they kick-started what was going to happen. A lot of other cultures coming in and invading the Nile Valley.
Okay, now because it says here called shepherd kings from Greek Hyksos from Egyptian explained variously as, excuse the pronunciation, but it says explained variously as Hik Shasu, which would mean ruler of nomads, or Hika Koswe, which would mean chief of foreign lands. So so that kind of adds, and it kind of confirms what you're saying as far as, okay, yeah, maybe you want to give the term sheep if we was trying to speak figuratively or poetically or allegorical, talking about these people, but these rulers or Hyskos, they actually were ruler of nomads or chiefs of foreign lands, and I'm not for sure if that's just necessarily designated to that area of Mesopotamia and and Canaan, old Canaan, or from that region. But I'm just noticing that within the etymology, it kind of is given a kind of different perception of what is kind of called by Hebrew Israelites and Christians as shepherd kings. It's
That's
it's
definitely the pretext because what what needs to be understood about our ancestors were very specific in description and very meticulous on record keeping. And this is one of the things that European scholars are very sure to leave out about the information about what comes out of the Nile Valley. They're quick to say that there's a lot of spurious ideas and spurious texts and things like that that come out of the Nile Valley. That's only because they've consecrated a lot of the information out of there and they're pigeonholing the information that's coming out. Not because we didn't take proper records and take proper precautions in order to preserve our antiquity. So a lot of times when what's being misrepresented and the whole idea of the whole historical aspect of what happened to ancient Kemet is that they don't put it to the proper context that we were under fire for 3,000, 4,000 years by invaders. There's not too many people who can last 10 minutes under a constant barrage, nonetheless 3,000 years.
right. That shows the magnificence.
So the magnificence, absolutely, because when you understand politically and historically what happened, starting with the Hyskos conflict, because I'm not going to say that ancient Kemet was all peachy keen and they all held hands and sung hymns. That's not true. Just when you look at where they came from Sudan and Punt and Nubia, then you understand that they were rivalries and also comrades to a certain extent to ancient Kemet, and a lot of that actually plays out into what the allegory is in the historical text and what's played out between Heru and Set. Because at one point in time, there was the lower part of the Nile Valley exalted Heru over Set, and vice versa. So a lot of the allegory that.
Okay, I think we lost him real quick, but I know we're getting right back. That'll give us an opportunity to take a quick break, because guarantee we about to come back with more fire, more information, so we can get this origin up out the way, of where these religions, where these beliefs come from. I think that's him right there. Let's see. Hold on, let's check it out, family. Bro. Yeah, you know how I get once you get to putting in too much information. We're gonna take a quick break, let the family get a chance to grab their water and their spleefs, because we about to bring this right on into who with these Hyskos and their role was. Like you said, they came in and they kind of had a culture that was developed. They were some rulers of some other people, and we're gonna talk about some of the ways that they went about changing up that culture and that spiritual system that was within the Nile Valley, like that you was touching on right before the drop. And then we just gonna get it, make it real heavy on them. So hold on, family, we'll be right back. And get your libations and we'll put it together. Hold on. Strap hang before. So it's a fact I support. Feeling the warm sun rays upon your back as you walk. The heat driven, a theory I clung to deep within is